You are listening to the Real Men Feel Show with Andy Grant. Real Men Feel encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having, but you don't need to be a man to join us. The Real Men Feel Show is produced weekly for your growth and enjoyment. Listen to us on podcast platforms including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and many more. You can also watch the show on YouTube by visiting realmenfeel.org/YouTube. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe on iTunes by visiting realmenfeel.org/iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at realmenfeelorg and at facebook.com/realmenfeelshow. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Your reviews, comments, feedback, and participation are welcome during the live show and anytime in our Facebook group, on Twitter, or at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's get into this week's show. Hello and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. I am your host, Andy Grant. You know, Real Men Feel was created to encourage men to realize that they are human beings, that they are emotional beings, that they can feel good, feel bad, feel whatever is going on for them. And I wanted to have a place to encourage that. And every day, all of us make choices between authentically feeling whatever's going on for us and not. By ignoring our emotions, by stuffing them, by denying them, by blaming and going on the attack against others. There's this huge list of ways that we all avoid our emotions. What they all come down to is some sort of a distraction. And one of the most powerful and addictive distractions that we all carry around with us all the time are our smartphones. So today's guest is fitness and lifestyle coach Oliver Cowlishaw. He joins us to discuss everything that rose up for him when he confronted his own smartphone addiction. So welcome to the show, Ollie.
Thank you, Andy. Pleasure to be here, man. Pleasure to be here.
Cool. So let's dive right into this. And you know, what prompted you wanting to cut down on your smartphone use? What was telling you that you had an addiction of some sort to this?
Well, I started to pay attention to my habits in a more general sense. So I started to pay attention to, the intention to live a life on my terms has always kind of been with me. But implementing that is a lot more difficult in practice. I started to track my smartphone use, and before tracking it, I never actually really understood the full length of the problem. Or it's either that, or I was just in a state of denial about it, because it didn't, to me, I was just telling myself the story that it wasn't a problem. I was saying, okay, no, it's fine. I need it for work, and whatever other story that would justify it for me, I was telling myself. And then because I thought it'd be a good idea, I thought I'd track it. So I downloaded an app called Your Hour. And essentially what that does is just track your usage, tells you what apps you're using. It also tells you how often you're unlocking your phone. And that was the one that really shocked me, because I tracked it over the course of 5 days. And my average unlocks were 180 times a day. So on average, I was taking my phone, picking it up, unlocking it, looking at it, checking notifications 180 times a day. Wow. And that was most of that was unconscious. It was a habit, because to unlock my phone, I actually have one of those fingerprint scanners on the back. Mm-hmm. So in order for me to actually look at my phone, I need to perform an action. So I started noticing, okay, 180 times. It was obvious to me at that point, I couldn't really justify that, because no human being needs to check the phone that many times a day. I couldn't run from the stories anymore.
Right.
So I thought, you know what? I want to be more present, because I was noticing it was impacting my relationships. It was impacting just how I was showing up to people. So I'd noticed that in conversations with friends, and with clients and with my family, I'd notice that I couldn't pay attention to them for as long as I would have liked to. Like, my attention span was really short in conversation. And I felt itchy. That's the only way I could describe it. I was talking to them, but I kind of wasn't at the same time. It's like half of me was with them, but not really. And half of me was wanting to check my smartphone. It was like a dopamine hit I was after.
Now, were you conscious of this? Like, oh, I'm done listening. I really want to check my phone. Or was it just this itch you had?
The only way I can describe it is it was an itch. And sometimes I would contribute that itchy feeling to something else. I'd say, oh, hang on, there must be something in my environment that's causing this problem. Whether something that someone said or something that I said, or I'd look for the answer to the itchy feeling in the wrong places. It just so happens that compared to this dopamine machine I had in my pocket, this conversation was uninteresting to me. And that wasn't good, because like I'm naturally quite a curious person when it comes to people, and I love people. I love depth and connection, but this thing was not allowed. It's almost as if this being kind of tied to this device in my pocket was not allowing me to fully feel that depth and connection that I wanted to. And it was becoming a problem. So I started, as I said, tracking it. And there was one particular day when I came back from training clients, and there was no one else in the house. And I came back and I'd noticed that I tracked it that day, and I checked my phone around, I think it was around 75 times that day. I thought I was doing okay, but I'd set myself the target in the morning not to check it any more than 80. So I was like, right, I'll let myself down if I can't turn my phone off and leave it for an evening, for God's sake. So I did that. I turned the phone off on 75 exactly, because I knew for a fact if I left it on any longer than that, it was definitely going to go over 80. Yeah. there was no two ways about it. So I left it in the drawer, and then I noticed how bored I got very quickly. Bored and slightly irritable. I was like, why am I getting pissed off with stuff? I'm only on my own in the house. Like, so I was starting to get really irritable. All sorts of stuff came up. So I was like, I went and had a bath. I went and chilled out a bit and came back to my room. And then all of a sudden, all this stuff came up, and it was a kind of hollow feeling. It was a hollow. It was empty, an empty feeling. And it was also loneliness, because it made me want to reach out to people. So did you want to reach out to people, or did you want to use the phone, and that was kind of telling you the phone will let you reach out to people? Like, how did you want to reach out to people as you felt you wanted to connect? Well, there was the strong impulse to check my phone and message someone, but I had already said to myself at that point that it was not an option.
Okay.
I was like, that's not happening. So whatever else comes up in my experience emotionally, I'm going to sit with. And I felt, it felt like loneliness, because I had this script, this story running, the being alone in the house, coupled with this feeling that I had been distracting myself from with my smartphone, all came up at once. And I had no other outlet. I had nothing else. I had nowhere to run, basically. I was just in my room, and it was a bit weird, because that scene from Apocalypse Now where Martin Sheen is just in that room on his own and is drinking whiskey and is like, fucking like just going crazy in the room. I felt like a little bit of that was coming into play, but then I just noticed that I had my camera tripod set up, and my, where I usually film my YouTube videos, that was all there. And then I was like, right, okay, I need some sort of outlet, because I do feel like I am going off the deep end here, which is crazy, because by this point I'd only been without my smartphone for an hour.
Wow.
Which is crazy. So I was like, right, the real potential for smartphone use to become an addiction in people who potentially crave that social connection is really apparent to me in that moment. So I just pressed record, and I said, I pressed record, not with the intention to film a YouTube video that I would upload later, but I pressed record just so I'd have an outlet with which to express myself. So then I just hit record, and I just started talking about whatever came up for me. And I think the video ran for around 22 minutes. And a couple of times during the video, the emotion, that empty feeling became so strong. And through talking about it, it brought it more to the surface. It made it more vivid to me. And it's interesting because this is tied in with a theme in my life at the moment, which is uncovering this sense of toxic shame that I've kind of had for a while, this belief that I'm inherently broken or defective. And I feel that way, or less so now, but I feel that way when people look at me and I'm not feeling particularly good about myself. And the reason why a lot of my YouTube videos were kind of a little, in my view, a little hollow is because I felt hollow in them because the camera was facing this way, amplifying my shame. So in that moment, when I was filming the video, the camera was looking this way, and it's like, I really have nowhere to hide here. I'm pressing record. This is being sort of documented on the camera, and I haven't got my smartphone to pacify this feeling anymore. And then it just came up a few times, and I got to the end of the video and I thought, right, what's the last thing I want to do with this? And it's like, the last thing I want to do is upload this to YouTube. So I thought, right, well, that's the best thing I need. That's the thing I need to do. I need to upload this video to YouTube. Right. So I did that. And when it comes to my channel and when it comes to my online presence, I've had this inherent, and I guess in my personal life too, I've had this belief I've been sort of carrying around with me that if I am emotional, if I am vulnerable, and if I let my sensitive, I guess, allow my sensitive nature to be on display, bad things will happen. And I could never really articulate, and I guess I still can't, what I thought would happen. But filming and uploading that video was kind of a test. It was like, okay, well, let's see what bad things could happen then if I let this part of myself out. And nothing bad happened. Actually, there was an outpouring of love and support. And the depth and connection with which I wanted to experience with my audience on YouTube for the past 2.5 years, I was putting up walls and I was trying to act how I thought the audience would. I was trying to act in ways in which I thought the audience would like, while trying to hide that sensitive and emotional part of myself. But in this video, I did what I basically showed, the part of myself I've been trying to avoid showing for the past 2.5 years. And then thus from doing that, I felt more depth and connection from my audience and with people from that one video than I have in the past 2.5 years on YouTube. And it's absolutely crazy. And that came as a result of owning that vulnerable aspect.
Right. Cool. And I would just make it clear that the loneliness, the hollowness, the shame, it was always there and being covered up. It wasn't because you stopped using your phone that's not what created these emotions.
No.
Okay, great.
It didn't create them. The working hypothesis I have of this at the moment is that it wasn't created through not using my smartphone. Right. I actually don't think that, I don't think any addictive behavior in a sense is creating things. I think they're distraction. That's why we use them, I feel.
Yeah, so no, I totally agree.
And that's how it was for me. Yeah. And through doing this, it's like I've realized that this shame, this hollowness has been something I've also been carrying into my interpersonal relationships. My close, intimate relationships have been massively affected by this shame and this belief that I'm in some way defective, and that if someone really saw me, they'd run a mile, just bad things would happen, sort of thing. So in some respects, I see reducing my smartphone usage as being it's been the thing that I've been the least willing to do, but it's the area that I need to look at the most. And since the 2 weeks that I uploaded the video, I've been keeping the usage to a minimum, and it seems that it was one of the missing links. Because even when I was really like hooked, which to a degree I still am, because I'm trying to be grounded about it, but I could go for a walk in the woods and I wouldn't be enjoying myself. Like I wouldn't be able to just walk through the woods and genuinely like be present and actually enjoy myself. I'd be happy to tell people that I enjoyed myself. I'd be like, yeah, look at how spiritual I am. I walked through the woods. How cool is this? When in actual fact, the reality is I walked through and I was like, if no one was watching, I was on my phone every 30 seconds to a minute in the woods.
It was just a new place to be distracted.
Exactly.
Right. It's the old saying, wherever you go, there you are. So you just bring your problems and fears and issues with you into the woods. And
yeah, exactly. Wherever you go, you take yourself with you.
Yeah.
And it's been an absolute journey. But that's the interesting thing as well, Andy, because for so long I was justifying this habit to myself.
Yeah.
I would say that everyone's doing it. I would also use my ability to articulate things in the service of the addiction by saying by making arguments up and saying, oh, there hasn't been enough research yet that tells us that smartphones are bad, and all of it was just self-deception that just so happened to conveniently give me a reason to keep going back to my smartphone.
Yeah, because again, it gives you a hit. There is a reward. I think I had to go back and look at this. So I first really heard about this as a real thing back in April 2017. The TV news program 60 Minutes did a story, and they had a Google product manager on talking about how phones and apps and social media itself are designed to hook us in, to reward our brain. The timing that you get from different apps saying, hey, someone liked this or someone like that or someone followed you, it's all timed. It's not the moment things happen. It's time to find out how to keep you hooked. And the guy on the show talked about your phone. It's a slot machine. And every time you pick it up, you're pulling the lever like, hey, what did I get today? And how many people like me? And, who said what? And who shared with me? And it's this, especially for entrepreneurs, for people building their business, you're told you got to be on social media, got to be out there and doing things. And, I've never met anyone that has, had a crazily successful business because they kept checking how many likes they had. but we're all kind of taught, and, we're told we have to be there. And the phone, again, hooks you because you get that reward. A smiley face, an emoji. It's all, oh, yay. It fires up some part of your brain. And it takes a while. I think it's been 2 years. I deleted all the games on my phone. And that was just like, this is just ridiculous. This is not helping me. It's not productive at all. So I just deleted all games. If I get a Facebook invite, hey, it's new, this, no, gone. You're dead to me. I unfriend anyone that sends me game requests, but, because so I try to focus on productivity, but I'm hooked on I posted something. How many people looked at it yet? And all that kind of nonsense. But so you mentioned that you had the app to track your time. What else did you do to help make this decreased usage a reality as opposed to just something you wanted to do?
Okay, yeah. So just before I answer that question, you mentioned that you unfriended any friend who sent you a game request. There's a hilarious status that I saw a year ago or so saying, if I get another Candy Crush request, I'm calling the police.
Yes, I understand that.
I thought it's got to that point, has it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the ironic thing is, and the slightly embarrassing thing is, about a year and a half ago, I made a video for my YouTube channel saying, and the title is this, Andy, are you ready? How to cure your smartphone addiction forever.
Uh-huh.
So I saw that. It was as if I saw that on YouTube the other day and I thought, oh my word, that's embarrassing. I'm not going to delete it. I'm going to own it. And in that video, I basically talk about how meditation, implementing new habits like meditation and all that other stuff is useful. But to tell you the truth, I consider those things to be just fundamental habits for living a good life anyway. But to be really specific to smartphone use, there's a great book that I'm about halfway through now called Atomic Habits by a guy called James Clear, who's a habit specialist. And he said in this book as well, which really inspired me to do this, to reduce bad habits, you need to increase the friction. And that basically means you need to make that bad habit more difficult. And the inverse is the same for good habits. So you need to make it easy for good habits and make it really difficult for bad habits. So what I started doing was, and this is the past 3 days actually, I've started saying to myself, every time I check my phone, I'm going to turn it off. Because that increases friction. Because we have that craving. Okay, so I'll be really subjective about it. I get this craving, and sometimes there is no space at all and no time at all before my phone's in my hand, I've unlocked it, and I'm on Instagram. That can happen in the space of a second. So increasing the amount of time from craving to reward, increasing that gap is absolutely crucial for me. Turning my phone off increases the friction and delays the time between craving and reward. So I turn my phone off after using it every time. I have been successfully doing that now for the past 3 days, bar a few exceptions. And that's been reducing the amount of times I spend checking my phone, because it's allowing me to get a bit more, to sort of question what I'm actually checking it for.
Right.
Another thing to increase friction even further, whatever apps I need to use for my business or whatever, I uninstall them every time I use them. So I take Instagram, take Facebook, and I kind of need to use those for the stories aspect. Like to promote my business, I need to be, Instagram and Facebook stories is quite useful. So I install it and then just get rid of them off my phone every single time. So now, in order for me to actually check my smartphone, I need to, 1, turn it on, 2, reinstall whatever app I need to check it for. I'm just trying to come up with more hoops I need to jump through.
Wow.
Also, on that same app, and they should chuck a few quid my way after this podcast. On the app Your Hour, they also they have like this floating clock thing. So if you go on Instagram, a timer will appear on the screen, which is actually ticking. It's just ticking over 1 second at a time. And it can go green, amber, red. So green is like 10 minutes. Above 10 minutes, it goes amber. Above 20 minutes, it goes red, for instance. So I'm also on, whenever I'm on these apps, I'm looking at my time, how long I'm actually spending on there. And there's also a function on the app, which is called an auto lock function. And when it reaches a certain time limit that you set yourself, it locks you out. And then, I've tried this, you could try and go back into the settings and change all of it and say, oh, give me 5 more minutes. It's like, no. Like, you've run out of your time for the day. We know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So no. So those are just things I'm implementing to increase the friction. And also daily, I am trying to remind myself what it is I'm actually doing. And rather than, and this has never really worked for me, if I tell myself I'm not going on my smartphone, then the way that works in my mind, what that does, that gets my mind preoccupied with smartphone. It's still thinking about smartphone. So fixating on just not checking my smartphone, it's also in a negative. It's basically saying I'm not going to do that, but it's not actually saying something I should do in its place. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. So
I've started just to, I guess, in a more philosophical way, ask myself how this is making my life better. It's like I'm not just trying to reduce my smartphone use. I'm trying to make my life better. And this fits into the broader framework of that goal quite nicely, actually. And another thing, the way I've been reducing my smartphone use, and this has been really successful. And actually, I'm pretty sure in a few months' time, I'll consider this habit to be absolutely life-changing as well. A big problem I used to have is I would wake up and within 5 seconds of being conscious, my smartphone would be in my hand, and all of a sudden I'm browsing Instagram, and I'd be on my phone for like half an hour in the morning, sometimes longer if I didn't have any plans that morning, and then I'd have this weird sort of scattered feeling throughout most of my day, unless I meditated and sort of cleared it. But what I've been doing now is I wake up and I have a morning routine. So I wake up, I fill in my 6-minute diary, which is basically gratitude, three things you're grateful for in the morning, how you're going to make the day great, and a positive affirmation. So I do that after I wake up, and then I read 10 pages. And that creates enough space for me to not want to check my smartphone. And a lot of the time, my smartphone's now off and it's in the drawer. So I don't wake up and it's on my bedside table. That's just asking for trouble.
Right.
I wake up and I now have to write in my diary, read a book, and then go over to my desk, open it up, turn it on, reinstall all the goddamn apps again. Like there's so much friction in the morning for me to use my smartphone that it just naturally reduces the likelihood that I'm going to use it. Because I feel whenever I've tried willpower to sort of reduce any bad habit, whether that's porn, whether that's eating pizza, whatever the hell, it's never worked. Like willpower has never worked. But designing my environment in a certain way, that's always been the ticket.
Right. Cool. This is one thing about for people that always hit snooze. They've always said, put your alarm clock across to the side of the room. So you have to get up, get out of bed to go turn it off. So again, don't be charging your phone at your bedside. Don't even have it, have it in another room or have it off in another room or all those things. Yeah. So I've noticed since someone shared your video with me and I've been aware of my own habits of getting lost in smartphones. And, I decided to just get rid of games a long time ago, but I'll notice that for me, it's usually boredom. And I'm like, this show, this conversation, whatever I'm doing, this is boring. I'm going to look for the phone. And now I just try to stop that and don't let that happen. And I'm like, all right, well, what's really boring me? Am I boring myself? Are my empty, vacuous thoughts boring me? Am I using boredom as an excuse because I'm aware of the thing I should be doing? The tasks I said I would get done today, but seeing what's on Twitter, that's more important, or that's easier because it's right here, or a lie I find myself telling myself is, well, I got to check the news. What's going on in the world, and like, no, I don't really. I'd rather make some news. Let's let me make my day as opposed to being in reactive mode, because that's what if I start the day with a smartphone, I'm just reacting right from the first moment I'm awake.
Yes.
It's like you've given away your power for that day.
Yeah, straight away. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing you say about boredom, because with boredom, I've often found that if I sit with the boredom for long enough, it very quickly transmutates into another emotion that's really telling me what the problem is.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think boredom is just a surface level emotion that's kind of like a restlessness or an agitation or something. It's like I see boredom as being like a surface level symptom, or like waves on the surface, but the problem's usually a bit deeper.
Right.
And that's another thing as well when it comes to, and this is a thing that's allowed me to, I think, as a habit that's allowed me to really get a handle on this thing, is the self-awareness aspect of the whole deal. Something that's massively important to me as a value is living intentionally. It's like, do I need to check this? What am I trying to get from this? Is this serving becoming the person I want to be and living the life I want to? Like, no, I'd say 8 times out of 10, I've been checking my phone. It doesn't serve that goal in the slightest. And in order to actually change it, it seems really self-evident, but you need to really want to. You need to want to actually You need to want to change it, and you need to want to reduce your smartphone use. And that's why you need to get really clear on your motivation to do so. Otherwise, it will just remain a good idea, but instant gratification is really powerful.
Yep.
And that will win. If you don't have a clear why on this, then that instant gratification monkey will kick the shit out of you, you know? So you need to want to, but meditation, and this is the thing, meditation has really allowed me to get the self-awareness and the clarity around it all. Because I actually feel that part of an addictive or compulsive behavior involves, at least to some extent, a discomfort intolerance. To some extent, there's loads else, but something, building a tolerance to uncomfortable feelings is something that will help the process of recovery from a compulsive or addictive behavior for sure. And meditation cultivates that. So when you meditated for a while, just simply the simple act of observing your breath actually becomes fascinating. So I take my smartphone away, and I feel that meditation because I've been meditating now on and off for about 10 years. And that's definitely given me the sort of ability and willingness to curiously look at the uncomfortable feelings and really, like, rather than judge them as bad and try and inevitably run from them,
right,
in kind of an animalistic fashion, like, oh, this is bad, run away sort of thing. It's like, right, let's sit with it. Where is it appearing in my body? Like, there's an uncomfortable feeling and it's here. Now, where's the evidence for it? And usually it's in my chest, in my solar plexus. But meditation, and I know I said that in that quite funny Cure Your Smartphone Addiction Forever video, but I did actually hit on something there. Meditation, because if you take your smartphone away and if you've got a compulsive attachment to it, shit will come up. I mean, take it from me. When you take any compulsive behavior away, what you've been using that for has been waiting there for you. Take it away, and it's not going to go away. That you have to face it. It's a confrontation with yourself.
Right.
And if you haven't the capacity to sort of sit with uncomfortable feelings, then you'll go back to what's familiar and comfortable, and usually in the form of that habit you're trying to change.
Right. Yeah. You go back to your distractions and your addictions and lie to yourself that, well, this feels better, so it must be good for me because I feel better now. And yeah, it's just a whole nother layer of masks and bullshits. And, if it's an oil well, that's your emotions that, it's going to blow at some point. And, by choosing to put away your addiction, by choosing to put away your smartphone, you're giving yourself control over, I choose to feel these emotions now instead of having them come out sideways and in some really destructive way in the future. Right?
Which they will.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Emotions cannot be buried forever. And I find the longer we ignore them, the more damage they can do when they finally do get expressed.
That is so true. That is so true, Andy. And I've seen that in my own professional life. This is why I'm sort of more interested in the mindset side of things, like fitness as well as mindset, but mindset is the real meat of it, because I've met people who, most of my clients are over the age of 40, and we get really into the nitty gritty. And sometimes I just feel that I get an intuitive sense for a person, and it's like, wow, this symptom that you're having, these, in one case, for instance, sudden angry, rage-filled outbursts that come at the drop of a hat, that are uncontrollable, and even make the person feel like they have become possessed in the course of like their outburst. Now that to me is like some prolonged gross mutation of a simple emotion that wasn't felt in the moment. Mm-hmm. So this is what it means, because like things like removing your smartphone, or managing any compulsive behavior, really, it allows you to sort of be present moment to moment as things come up. And that might not be fun, because that might lead to some discomfort and pain in the moment. But bloody hell, you are putting money in the bank in an emotional sense in that way, because the alternative is distraction. It's like pretty much consistent distraction until, like, whatever emotion might have been needed to be felt in the moment might have been quite simple, over time becomes complex and buried under layer upon layer upon layer of story and denial. And then it becomes just this tumor. Like, and then it's like, what the hell was that all about? And then you need to hire a therapist to help you sort it out.
Yeah. I've shared my history many times, but years and years of depression and hospitalization for suicide attempts and suicidal ideation going, longer than just the attempts and the thinking about it. But when I discovered that if I was willing to feel any emotion the moment it showed up, it passed way quicker and easier than I ever would have expected. So I find, living in the present moment, everyone talks about, yeah, that's a goal. I know how to be present. Well, being present means being present with the crap too. But when we're willing to do that, again, the crap rolls away much quicker and easier than I've ever expected to. So there's when we're saying, be willing to feel what shows up, it's not a torture chamber, right? Emotions, it's energy in motion. They're meant to pass through us. It's only when we say, no, I'm not supposed to feel that, or no, that's not the right timing for this. That's when we get in trouble. And that's when we reach for the phone, and the phone helps us make more blockages in our system and in our mindset.
Exactly. Yeah. There was a great meditation teacher once told me the pretty funny phrase. He goes, sit with yourself and face reality, bliss or piss. So it's like, whatever it is. Because like, that's the common misconception that people have about people who meditate, or this whole present moment thing. So the present moment is no guaranteed cakewalk. The present moment is not guaranteed for you to be in a blissful state, because sometimes you'll experience some real pain. But the alternative is worse, because that's the thing, and you touched on this really nicely as well, because during a 20-minute, 30-minute meditation, you'll have different emotions come up. Sometimes it'll be pretty steady, but other times it'll be quite rocky. But one thing, if you remain sort of rooted and you're just paying attention, you're not judging, you're not making a story. If you just watch, you'll notice that whatever emotion comes up, you can't possibly feel that way for long, unless here's the thing: you can't feel that way for long unless you attach a story to it and continually refresh the story in your mind. So, and that's the thing. Like I've had clients who I train and we meditate, and they start writing in a diary, start writing in a journal, and all this shit, this like resentfulness from something that may have happened 20 years ago comes up. And they're feeling this emotion in the moment now because they're reliving this story. And it just came from, once again, unexpressed emotions in the present as they emerged. And I think this is where an honest and wide open attention, moment to moment, and continually cultivating that skill, there literally is no greater way to live than that. Because if the bad shit happens, you're there for it. If the good shit happens, you're there for it. Like, you're not numb.
Right.
Like that's a fear I have, is waking up in 20 years and then thinking, what the hell happened there? Like, it's like, did I live? I feel like I've been underwater for that long. And I've had phases in my life where I felt underwater for, let's say, 6 months or a year. And I'm like, that year basically felt like it went like that because I've not been there for it, really.
Yeah. And that's a brutal thing to realize, but it's also empowering, right? Because it's only with your awareness of that can you change it. If you just, because there have been points out, like, I thought this underwater feeling, oh, this is life, right? This is just how it feels. It doesn't, it is just this kind of almost this perpetual boredom, because I refuse to take responsibility and accept what I've made for myself, or, refusing to accept the emotions I've buried and denied, refusing to accept that, I'm not broken, right? That whatever I'm feeling is okay to feel. And, if I'm authentic, if I'm vulnerable, if I cry in a video, it didn't mean I'm no longer a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's, it takes some courage to be willing to live in the moment and to be willing to deal with all the stuff we have buried. Because when it was new for me, I had decades of shitty feelings that I had to feel before they could be free. I find it takes a while before you can really live emotionally in the moment. You've got to get all the past shit out of the way first, which it can be done. You know, I'm living proof, and it sounds like you are as well, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, because this is quite interesting, because this thought just came up. I was always told in primary school, because I was a naughty kid. I was a bit of a bastard in primary school, and my teachers would tell me, and I get a kind of a chill down my spine when I even relive these words. The longer you hold out, the more you lie, the worse it gets. And that is actually a really profound statement. Yeah. And I'm not talking about lying to others. I'm talking about lying to yourself. And, right. What I mean by lying to yourself is distorting the actual reality of your experience to fit a certain story that you have, that you know deep down isn't actually true. Right. So and that's the thing. Like, the longer you do this, the longer you turn away from reality, the heavier, the more it's going to give you a bitch slap when you actually finally look it in the face. So, like, I've worked with people who are morbidly obese, and I've worked with people who have addictions. Like, although it's not my specialty, I'm only at the time I was only a personal trainer, but they did have addictions to smoking or to alcohol, and it's like, okay, and it was like, it had accumulated. And one bit of advice I got from someone who was an alcoholic, he was sort of saying, when you're in your 20s, he's saying, just watch yourself, be careful, because it starts off as being just a drink when you're stressed a bit, or a drink for a laugh, but it slowly becomes a crutch. and that's the thing with addictions, it gradually builds. And then eventually, when you look for the source of it, you've got all this stuff just waiting behind the door. And that's the thing. The worse it gets, the less you want to look at it. So it is a downward spiral. And I've grown up around sort of people with addictive tendencies. There's quite a lot of alcoholism in my family. My uncle passed away from basically drinking himself to death a few months ago. And I'm halfway through training to be an actual psychotherapist, because I've always felt ever since I was really young, I've been looking at this behavior, and there's been something that just didn't sit right with me. Even when I was really young, I was watching like grown adults just pissed out of the tree, really drunk, like, and I'd had quite a few experiences like that. And the whole time I've been sort of going, right, I don't know what this is. I don't know what it is, but there's something about this that doesn't seem quite right. And I'm training to be a psychotherapist because I kind of want to work that out. And it is all related to the mind and your emotions and repression and emotions and stories that are the unexamined. Like, if they lie unexamined, like a person's compulsive tendencies, such as smartphone addiction, such as anything else, that becomes kind of a signpost for what's actually going on. It's like a surface level symptom, because one thing that frustrated me with my uncle was my family would constantly be telling him to stop drinking. And all they talk about was, oh, he needs to stop drinking. That's his problem. Meanwhile, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, no, stop. No, don't go at him for his drinking. That will increase his shame. He knows he drinks too much. But what's under the surface is what I was curious about.
Right. Yeah. Addictive behavior is kind of, it's self-medicating. It's trying to ease the pain, but it's the more efficient thing is to feel that pain. Then you don't need to cover it up. But yeah, all substance abuse, I find it just, repeatedly putting Band-Aids on yourself while you're gushing blood right through that Band-Aid. Like, it just, it doesn't, it can, for a short time, there's the illusion that this is beneficial to you. And then there's the denial that it isn't beneficial anymore. And it's how long does that denial about that this serves you or it's easier. But, we got a comment that I want to mention because it's this weird catch-22. And you mentioned that an app helped you curtail your smartphone use. And someone has a comment of great topic, but it's bizarre that I'm watching it from my phone. So with most substance abuse, we're told that, one is too many and zero's not enough. I'm butchering that. Anyway, most substance abuse, you can't have any. But, so are you attempting to go cold turkey and never touch your smartphone? Or is there a productive amount of time, and, or is that different for every person? What do you think about that?
So, and I willfully acknowledge the irony. Like, it's something that's been brought up to me a few times on my channel or even in person. It's like, okay, yeah, smartphones, social media, because the one video that's just been constantly getting more views and subscribers since I filmed it a couple of years ago is a video where I'm telling everyone that I'm trading my smartphone in for a little Nokia 105, a dumb phone. And there's been so many comments saying, "Oh, are you still using it? I'm watching this from my smartphone. What do you think about that?" And it's like, oh, fantastic. I knew one day I'd be getting asked that again in person. Okay, so one thing that came up for me as you were mentioning the question, I've got two answers for that. One is, ask yourself, is it intentional? Like, are you intentionally, like what is it you're actually trying to achieve here? Because I think if you examine the action itself, you can use social media to great effect. Like, this conversation is a prime example of that. You can use it if social media fits into your picture of what you want and who you want to be. If it fits in there even a little bit, then carve out that little space for it in your life, no problem. Because there are some people who just don't go on Facebook, because what they want out of life, social media doesn't fit into that framework, which is totally cool. But for some people, however, it might do. It might mean that you're able to make Facebook events, you're able to invite your friends. Like, I've had a couple of house parties over the past few months, and like, I wouldn't have been able to get people over who I don't know very well without Facebook, for instance. So it's not a case for me of going cold turkey completely and demonizing it and making it into this like evil thing, because I don't think a witch hunt is necessary here. It depends on the individual, it depends on the context. Like, like alcohol, for instance. I have a couple of drinks. I'm a happy guy on a couple of drinks. I will chat shit for ages. I'll buzz around. If you get me massively drunk, I'll sometimes start behaving really strange and get proper emotional. So I hate to use the cliched term of moderation.
No, I mean, I think your original statement of intention is much more accurate and important, and I get that. I'm going on Facebook to do something, not I got nothing to do, I'm going to lose a half hour, an hour just seeing what people are doing. I'm and I don't know what people do. Like, I'm going to go look for 5 memes that make me laugh. Like, does anyone think that? Like, they're just like, they just, I just lost 40 minutes. What the hell happened? It's more like that in my experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It just happens habitually. You start scrolling, and the next thing you know, you go down the rabbit hole. Yeah. So for me personally, I'm not going cold turkey. I've set myself an 80 phone check a day limit on the app. So it will tell me when I'm approaching the end of it and stuff. So I'm trying to keep it at 80. But that's not been massively successful. So I might need to change the goalpost a little bit. But
well, again, it's good to have if you set a goal and you reach it the first day, well, then it wasn't much of a goal. So yeah, I think if and it's easy to say because I'm not doing this yet, but if you have a number that's a goal and it's difficult to hit, that is probably a good number. If you're a little bit above, if it's tough to hit it, it feels right.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm sort of at with it at the moment. It's like, I'm not going cold turkey. I'm not demonizing it, but social media to a degree does fit into the framework of what I want in my life. I want to run a successful online business, and social media just so happens to be the ticket at the moment. There are other ways, but it's a little challenging.
I find there's a big difference from times when social media is truly social, when you're on an app, on a website, on whatever, and you're truly interacting with people, that's different than when you're alone, just reading and scrolling and liking and that's different. You're not that's like anti-social media. you're just become
Yeah.
more isolated.
Yeah, exactly. I think there needs to be certain boundaries too, such as, and I don't know how related this is to the original question or anything, but
Oh,
I
that
think it's an
never
important.
matters.
I think it's yeah, it was quite a segue. I think it's an important point because I sometimes I go out. I'll go out for a meal or something, and I don't know. I guess I just die slightly inside when I see a couple on their phones at the table, or a family once. God, that was difficult to watch. There was a family of 6 people, all of them on the phones, literally, including husband and wife, and all 4 kids.
Yeah.
It was like, then, ooh, you can't just dive in and say, stop it. Like, because it's not their decision. But I think there needs to be boundaries. And I'll go back to this again. It's intention. Is it intentional or not?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that I think, I mean, and that's the key, from far more than smartphones. If you, whatever you're doing, if it's driving to work, if it's driving and not, you ever been in the car and you just zone out like, whoa, I missed my exit. What happened to me?
Exactly.
The more that's intention helps you be in the moment, helps you do everything with more awareness. And again, I said earlier, we can't change anything until we're aware of it.
Yes, without a doubt. So self-awareness is it is the foundation for any meaningful change. If you're not aware of the problem, you have no idea what you're up against.
Right.
And another thing I did have to mention, which is pretty cool, as a tool that's really practical. And I mentioned this to my housemate the other day because my housemate, as a result of all this buzz about smartphones and stuff, my housemate started talking about it recently, and he wants to get rid of it altogether. He says he goes on the feed. This is his thing. He goes on the feed. He scrolls down loads. And next thing you know, he's finding out. This is the thing that he said, and some of the people watching, listening, might be able to relate to this. He'll scroll down and he'll see what all of his friends are up to. But he mentioned something really interesting. He said, "This leaves me with no topics of conversation available when I see them."
Oh.
So I thought, okay, that's a really interesting take on it.
Yeah.
So, what I said to him was, he was like, how do you deal with that when you're working on Facebook and stuff? I was like, I actually have a Chrome extension on Facebook that wipes your newsfeed clean. It gets rid of it altogether, and it replaces it for an inspirational quote. And I've actually had that on my Chrome as a Chrome extension now for the past year. And that's just something that's just when I first started doing that, I installed it, and then I felt this sense of unease about installing the Chrome extension, and my feed's gone. I felt like I was isolated. Oh, I don't know what people are up to. Yeah. But that's actually just become part of my reality now. Like that's just become something. Like someone said, "Oh, you're scrolling down your newsfeed." It's like, what? Oh, that thing. I thought it was just a quote from Benjamin Franklin. I thought everyone saw that.
That's weird. I've not heard of that. So you log into Facebook, yet you don't see anything to suck you in from anybody else, and you just do whatever with intention you went there to do.
Well, exactly that. Yeah, that's exactly the case. And in which case, if I actually wanted, and this comes back to the intention thing again, I think we've unearthed a general theme here as well. Yeah. If I go on Facebook and I'm genuinely curious about one of my friends' lives, I have to go in and type it.
Yeah.
I'll go in and type it and check, but that's intentional. I was thinking about that person. I'm curious how that person is. I want to know what they're up to. Facebook isn't just deciding to feed it to me.
Right.
Facebook feed. What are we, cattle?
Yeah.
So I'll have to go and check. And I'd also do something similar on YouTube. If I go on YouTube on my desktop, on my laptop, I've also got another extension for that too. It doesn't feed me a bunch of videos, because YouTube's so good at this, man. YouTube's amazing at picking what I would want to watch.
Yeah.
It's like, honestly, it's so cool that it can do that. The algorithm's so powerful. So powerful, in fact, that I was wasting so much time watching like meaningless bollocks on YouTube. So I installed an extension that got rid of that too. So now if I actually want to watch a video, I'll have to type in a certain name, a topic. It's an intentional thing. Right. I want to learn that. So yeah, I think you can make technology work for you, because if you've got a problem in this way, there are extensions out there and tools out there that are technology as well that can actually help you design your environment so that it's not as much of a problem.
Right. Because again, we talked about it, and I'll share the link to this 60 Minutes report on the blog post at realmenfeel.org. These things are designed to help us and to hook us. So then you can have other tools that really kind of strip away the hooking aspect and put you back in charge.
Yeah, exactly. And this is totally true, that when it comes to this technology, we are the canaries down the mine. This has not been around long enough to know what effect it has.
Yeah.
I mean, that feeling, that intuitive feeling I get when I see 5 or 6 like kids at school just walking down the street, all with the head looking at the smartphone as they're walking, that intuitive feeling I get that that's not right.
Yeah.
I think that's all we've got to go on now, but I think that's quite a powerful indicator. So yeah, I lost my train of thought.
No, it's good. It's fine. So you're a few weeks into this. Has anything about lessening your smartphone usage, has anything been easier than you expected it to be?
I am really surprised how little I actually need to check Facebook. I don't need to. And this is cool because the first sort of hour and a half of my day, I'm not on my smartphone at all. With some exceptions, some days I've got a message I'm looking out for from a client or something. But like in general, first hour and a half of my day, I'm not on at all. But this does get easier. So I'll go and make a coffee and I'll sort of chill out a little bit. And over time, hearing the morning chorus outside my window, that's not something I have ever actually paid much attention to. But after this took a little while, and it's mainly been sort of the tail end of last week that I actually noticed that I'd wake up and then the first sort of half an hour, I'm like, God, those birds they sound so clear. I can't describe it. They sound like what a diamond would sound like. And I start having thoughts like that otherwise I'd be on my phone. But this time I'm actually really appreciating certain things. So it starts off being quite difficult because when you take something away, there will be a bit of a void left until you fill it with something else, until the mind redirects its attention. But after the first hour and a half of being awake, I'll check Facebook and there'll be like, say, I don't know, 10, 12 notifications or something. And I load them up and 10, 11 of those are ones from groups I have since long lost interest in. They're from random events that I said I was going to go to ages ago. It's just this battle for your attention, like act on me, act on this, and it's interesting how just little you need to actually check it. Like, you know how they used to check email? You know how email's on your phone now? You just quickly check your email on your phone. I remember being in my auntie owns a business, an office, and she owns her own business. I remember when I was younger, I think I was about 10 years old. And I remember being over at my auntie's office because she was looking after me for the afternoon. And there was the sheet on the wall that was saying daily schedule. This was like a daily schedule for one particular person who worked in this cubicle. And 9 o'clock, check emails. 12 o'clock, check emails. 3 o'clock, check emails. 3 times a day, this person checked their emails. Jesus, that's nothing compared to today.
Yeah.
Like, you can easily check your notifications and your emails and the rest of it, like way more than that. But that just goes to show that it's not out of necessity. It's not always out of necessity that we're checking this stuff as often as we do. It's a rush. It's a dopamine thing. And the thing with dopamine, it's like the mind has a more of a dopaminergic response when it does that through novelty. And this is another thing, much earlier in when we're talking, you said it's like a casino. It's like a slot machine. So if your smartphone, I learned this, and this is quite a creepy fact. Part of the reason you keep going back to these devices and checking them again is because you don't know how many notifications you have. You don't know if you've got a message. You don't know. Your brain doesn't know. Sometimes you have no notifications. Sometimes you have just a couple, but sometimes you hit the jackpot and get 10 or 12. Ooh, look how connected you are now. Look how many people want you. Yeah. Look how connected to the tribe you are. And it's the novelty value. It's the novelty aspect of things. that keeps you coming back for more.
And it's a big ego hit. If, you know, so, I got 10 people liking that. So somehow, like, whatever I created, it's better because people liked it, as opposed to, I just created it and I liked it. Right? Like,
Yeah.
why isn't my liking whatever I made enough? Or why isn't it just sharing it, enough?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Which in theory it ought to be, really. And another thing that's also interesting off the back of what you said, this smartphone addiction really fascinates me, and social media addiction really fascinates me, in the sense that it seems to be certain types of people, certain personality types, certain people who've gone through certain experiences in their life seem to be more susceptible to it than others. And I'll use myself as an example. So I have, over the past few months, sort of really uncovered that belief I've been carrying around with me since I was about maybe 6, maybe 7, is this belief that I'm defective. It's shame. And that positions me as being really susceptible to smartphone and social media addiction, purely because if I am on my own and I have this belief that I'm just no good, I'm just defective, I'm just like broken, I go on Facebook, these notifications in the nice red sort of background with a little 1 or the 2 or and all this novel stuff that's related socially to everyone else, that's sort of a short-term antidote to the feeling of not being so good. Because it's almost like evidence to the contrary, isn't it? You're loading up Facebook, it's like, this belief that I carry around with me that makes me feel like shit and empty and hollow, it can't be the case because I'm having physical evidence for the contrary. Now, in that brief moment when I check a few notifications and whatnot, I am relieved of the burden of feeling like shit, feeling like I'm defective or broken. I'm relieved of that. And that can also be quite addictive in and of itself. And it's easier to seek that than it is to look at the belief itself, because it's a lot more obvious. It's a lot less subtle. So that's the point.
Has the response, you mentioned you've had a great response to the video, it's all been positive. Are you seeing more of a response to the smartphone addiction aspect or to the vulnerability of the shame that you talk about and has risen up by taking the phone away?
Yeah, really good question, actually, because that's the point. I've had a few comments, a few messages about, I see that generally the feeling is that it's good that you're pointing this out because it's something that seems so normal, but it's not. That's the general, if I put all the comments into one sort of sentence, that'd be it. But for the most part, it's the vulnerability aspect. It's like we see you, and generally the feedback has been, we see you and you're not broken. And that's been it. You're right. It's been the response to the vulnerability and confronting my shame. That's why I put it in the title. It's like I'm confronting my smartphone addiction on one level, but on a deeper level, I'm confronting this shame.
Right.
Which is hard.
Yeah, because you're looking at the self-chosen treatment, and which was trying to hide that shame that was there.
Yeah, the self-medication.
So, and you have ripped that smartphone Band-Aid off. You made it public. When I watch your video, I was really struck. And so I've seen videos where I probably made them. Like, I'm not sure if I'm going to post this, and I know full well I'm going to post this. But like yours was really like, you're like, I don't want to post this, but all right, it was this. You could see the pledge made to yourself, and kind of as that video closed, that here it goes. So
yeah, exactly. And if you watch any of my other videos, you'll notice that one stands on its own in style.
Okay.
The rest of the videos are they follow a particular script, like an intro, dangle the carrot, like as in sort of like say, if you stick around to the end, you might get this, then go through the 5 points and all this other stuff, which isn't necessarily bad, but like it was very different than the video I uploaded there. And that's because I initially was doing it for myself.
Right.
It was like, I need to express this, because that's the thing. I learn. I don't think before I speak, really. I sort of speak, and then things come out, and I sort of line things up, and I try and be really honest, and then a clearer picture forms through conversation and externalizing these subtle thoughts I have, which is why this conversation has been really cool for me to clarify things. And that works just as well on camera when I'm talking to the camera. But in the past, I've just not allowed myself to fully let that process occur, because I go in filming a video with a goal, and that goal is, please like this, please like me, please tell me this shame isn't necessary. But as I said earlier, the paradox is that when I actually showed the shit that I thought was worthy of shame, I'd experienced the exact opposite. But then again, the video is almost at 2K views, and I shared it on Reddit a couple of times, and I did get a couple of weird comments that was talking about the irony of it all, and saying like, "Oh man, you give too much of a shit. You act like you don't give a shit, but you do." I'm like, that's a bit weird, but generally, yeah, the vibe has been really positive, and it's been a super positive experience for me as well. And the fact that I'm on this podcast, even like, fast forward, rewind, I'd say 2 months ago, and someone says, "Yeah, you're going to be on a podcast that's going to be on Spotify." It's like, I'd be like, bollocks, what a lie. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, I'm glad you made the video. I'm glad you posted it. I'm glad you shared everything that you were feeling. I find time and time again, the more I share, the greater the feedback. And like I have I don't think we can overshare. You know, if it's genuine, you don't go like, get in trouble so you have something to share about on social media, but some genuine feeling, something that's been troubling you, something, because we're all connected. The shit that happens to us has happened to someone else in the past, in the future, and right now. So it always gives permission to someone else to go, "Oh yeah, I know that shame he's talking about," and it just gives them that little bit of crack, not the bad crack to the addiction crack, but that crack in your shell to express yourself, to really start feeling, and
yeah,
that's what we need. I'd love people to be addicted to their vulnerability, if we can, because again, there is a rush from that I imagine you had a sense of relief when that video was completed, right?
Yeah, that's entirely true. Because the thing is, I didn't realize until I uploaded and posted that video how much of a shit I really did give about how many views that video had, like how many comments it had, and then, yeah, it did feel like a relief. I posted it, and it's just like, look, I don't know how this is going to be received. It might get 50 views, and then it's just in the YouTube vault forever. But whatever it is, I wanted it to be, and that's the thing too. It's taken me this long to actually realize the barometers and the metrics that I use to measure my own success, and they've always been there, but I haven't really articulated them to myself. And that is, how real am I being? How honest am I being here? And the cool thing about this is I'm learning on my psychotherapy course at the moment what kind of a personality theory on what causes psychological distress. And just to put it really, really simply, you have an idea of yourself, your self-concept, and you have your experience, which is just your broader field of awareness, what you're paying attention to. And psychological distress occurs when there is a discrepancy between the two things. If a self-concept does not line up with experience, in the gap that's created between those two things lies anxiety, depression, even bipolar disorder, loads of just psychological distress of any kind lies in the valley of deception, which I call it. So after learning that academically, it was like, wow. So not being real, as in not showing up as yourself, not showing up as the vulnerable real you, that literally will kill you, because because taken to its ultimate extreme, you'll kill yourself. Men do, for that very reason. So like, I just realized probably in that session at my course that I've got to be real. There was such an inner agreement with that on a soul level, that if you're going to live, if you're going to do this, you need to be real. You need to face whatever it is. And you're not going to want to do it, but you have to, because it's the best way. And that's the point for me uploading and posting that video. It kind of gave me the courage. Because if it's easy enough to just lie to people about who you are, it's much easier to do that. Because we learn that through when we're children. My little brother, for instance, he's 7. He lies through his teeth to get what he wants, because he's an intelligent kid. He learns that he's learning now that he can manipulate reality to meet a need that he has. It sometimes takes people a lot longer, and sometimes people never learn that that's not a long-term viable solution to living a good life. But yeah, it's like you need to be real, because that's I kind of lost my train of thought there again.
The journey out of the valley deception, can have twists and turns, and you can lose your place. But
yes, exactly.
I'm really glad that we have connected outside of the deception. I encourage you to continue to have those open, authentic, really heart-centered videos, and not just go back to, hey, here's how to do bench press or whatever else they might have been in the past.
That's it. That's part of my resistance I have towards doing fitness videos, because it's like, look, you can find that shit anywhere. You can find better fitness videos than I could give you anywhere. Like, so it's got to be real. It's got to be emotive. It's got to be. But that's the point as well. It's not creating a personality out of it. It's not that I've uploaded and posted that video now. So now every video needs to be really sort of like, right, we're going to go into it. It's like whatever I'm feeling in that moment, whatever it is. If I lose my way, if I lose my track of talking, if I don't really know something very well, I'll just be honest about it. Because I think life can be so stressful and so heavy and such a burden, but it's a self-created burden. It's when the self-concept doesn't match up with experience. You're living basically as your idea of yourself, as your persona, rather than the actual you are, which is fresh and new, in every moment.
Right. Yeah. So just because you struck a chord talking about shame doesn't mean that you're always living in shame and that's all you can share going forward at all. Right.
That's exactly the case.
I certainly hope not.
Oh no, God damn it. That'd be exhausting. Yeah. It's like, that's the point too. Cause I had a few people, actually close friends or clients who messaged me upon seeing that video, and they were like, Ollie, are you okay? Yeah. And they were surprised to learn that, yeah, I'm feeling great. It's like, but the video, and it's like, that's how I felt in the moment.
Right. And
I recognize that the shame trigger, the shame pattern, is something that emerges occasionally, persistently through my life in certain situations more than others, etc. But I'm not in a constant state of, I fucking hate myself. Like, that's not the case. It's like any emotion. If you're living in presence, it will just come and go. It will phase in and out. And if you're with it, it will be quite a cool experience.
Beautiful. So where can people go to connect with you, to learn more about the real Ollie?
The real Ollie. Well, I suggest that you check out my YouTube channel, which is just my full name at the moment, because it used to be called Free Your Zen, but I changed it because it was a gesture to myself to just own who I am, really. So I started calling it just my name, Oliver Cowlishaw. You can find that, although my older videos, some of them are pretty good, some of them are pretty informative, but they're going to take a very different direction. So I'd suggest you subscribe to the channel. I suggest you just jump on board for the ride, man, because like, I don't know where it's going to go. I really don't. Like, I'm truly owning who I am, and I just don't know where it's going to end up. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be interesting though. It's going to be exciting. So subscribe to the channel. I also post on Facebook. I have my coaching page, which is called Oliver Cowlishaw Personal Coaching at the moment. So if you just type in Oliver Cowlishaw, the way it's spelt in the show notes or whatever, you'll find something. But yeah, the channel is going to be the one that I'm going to be all over this year.
Cool. Well, again, in the show notes at realmenfeel.org on the blog for this episode, we'll be sure to have links to the specific video that I saw with Ollie sharing about the smartphone addiction, and also to his full channel, his Facebook page, so that with intention, you can choose to follow and connect with Ollie and see how life unfolds further for him. So again, thank you, Ollie, for joining. Thank you for sharing who you really are, how you've really been feeling, and not just hiding behind some happy Snapchat crap.
Oh, too exhausting, man. Andy, it's been a wonderful experience. I really do appreciate you inviting me on. And yeah, I like those conversations where you feel like a part of you is permanently changed as a result of it. And that can happen through a single conversation. And I feel it within, almost on a cellular level, that slightly happened with this conversation. And I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, I encourage you and anyone else listening to post that as a review, because I've never seen anyone say that a podcast changed them at the cellular level. So wherever you're listening to us, wherever you're finding Real Men Feel, appreciate like, shares, comments, everything that we just said we don't need, but it's to help other people find the show. It's not to boost Ollie Mind's egos. We appreciate it, but we're not going to live and die by it. You can also realmenfeel.org. Check us out on Facebook. Send us feedback, realmenfeel@gmail.com. And I'll talk to you again soon. Be good to yourself.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. Until next time, visit realmenfeel.org or the Real Men Feel Facebook group and share what you thought of this episode. Please give this podcast a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel.